Hello everyone, thanks for joining this session of the Global AdTech Media event. I think we are going to start. Hello, I'm Marine. I am the product marketing lead at Smart for the demand side of the business. I am very happy today to moderate this panel in Smart's Jet with 5 experts of our industry. And today I have 2 very good news. The first one is that we are going to talk about cookieless and identity. So it's a very popular and top of mind topic for our industry. It has been covered a lot, but we have a lot of registration for this session. So I guess it's still a topic people want to learn from. So very good news. And the second very good news too is that we are not going to talk about the theory today. Most of the panel we could hear recently were about the solution, the concept, the impact for our industry. And today we wanted to focus on the practical aspect and the experimentation that have been already done in our industry. And for that, I am super happy to have 5 speakers from the supply and the demand side, and also some tech players that are running a business.
Hi, I'm Joanna.
Hello, Joanna. And who are running a business dedicated to solving the cookieless challenges. And I'm going to ask my speakers to shut on their camera, and they will be able to introduce themselves. So we'll start with you, Joanna, then.
Sorry for that. Hi, I'm Joanna. I run strategy at ID5. ID5 is a universal identifying company. We work with publishers to help them be able to create sustainable advertising revenues from their digital inventory. And we help advertisers and agencies and ad tech companies be able to target, measure, optimize frequency cap campaigns.
Thank you, Joanna. Let's go next with Emma from NumberEight.
Thank you. I'm Emma Raz. I'm the Director of Commercial at NumberEight. What we do is we help SSPs and publishers to resolve the addressability issue, making their inventory more valuable. And we do that by translating mobile sensors, so in-app environment and mobile sensors, into real-world context, such as running, shopping, relaxing, as well as habitual audiences, joggers, frequent shoppers, foodies, and so on. And basically allowing people to target even without IDs.
Thanks, Joanna. Let's go to the supply side with you, Paul.
All right, thank you very much. So I am Paul. I won't say my name because it's French and really complicated, so just say Paul. I'm Director of Ad Tech Sales at one of the biggest publishers in France, which is Prisma Media. We have about 10 million persons visiting our websites every day. And obviously, we are really, really focused today on addressing those cookie issues. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, Paul. And so then let's go to you, Asha, representing the advertiser world.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Asha Neville. I am a global digital marketing consultant at Dell Technologies. So at Dell, I help all of our different BUs. I advise them on programmatic strategy and how they should be using programmatic in their advertising campaigns around the globe. And obviously, identity is something that we're looking closely at today in the ad tech team.
Thanks, Asha. And to finish, we have Miles from OMD.
Hi, so Miles, I lead the data management solutions team at OMD EMEA. It's the fastest growing team in the agency. There's about 30 people across data engineering, data visualization and business intelligence, and marketing technology and advertising technology consultancy.
Thank you. So let's go into the first question then. So what actions did you take in the last 6 months with identity solution and cookieless approaches? What were the outcome and what was the challenge you had to overcome? So maybe we can start with you, Asha.
Yeah, sure. We've been obviously we've been looking at this for a while, talking to a lot of different people within this industry, trying to work out, what we should be doing, who is going to come out on top. We do not have all the answers just yet. We're working on a lot of education. We have started doing some testing. So one of our DSPs, Media Math, have got a really good integration with LiveRamp. And they were the first one we've actually tested with. So we've actually tested on some live campaigns, looking to see whether we can get the same scale in a cookieless environment as we could with a cookied up environment, whatever you want to call it. So we ran a live campaign, obviously a small one. We don't want to, do anything too crazy. But we actually had some really good results. Not only did we get pretty much the same reach as within the cookied environment, we actually got better engagement and better, we were measuring on ROAS, and we actually got better ROAS performance on that campaign, which was a big plus point because that was not something that we were expecting. So now we're looking at testing this with other DSPs, SSPs, and well, whoever else wants we can test with, over the coming months.
Thanks a lot, Asha. So very positive first feedback from your testing. Maybe Miles, as on the agency side, you have some other insights to share with us about your experimentation?
Sure, absolutely. I think it probably splits into first-party data, tests and trials that we've been running, which mostly at the minute is looking at extending relationships with primarily walled garden solutions and leveraging authenticated IDs like hashed email address and producing automated pipelines into the likes of Google, Facebook, and Amazon to support first-party data addressability at an ID level. So we've, I wouldn't say piloted those solutions, but I think extended the work that we had already set up with a lot of those different partners. And then in a prospecting environment, we've done, I think, much more testing and trialing of emerging solutions in the marketplace, primarily focused on contextual-based capability. So we've been looking a lot at contextual partners. I think our understanding of context and contextual solutions has evolved quite considerably over the past 6 to 12 months beyond simply looking at the content on the page, but looking at those real-time, real-world contextual moments. So we've been trialing a lot of those different solutions and having success. I mean, primarily, we're looking at how well those solutions scale. And if we're able to deliver a campaign at scale across multiple territories and multiple markets, but then obviously looking beyond operational feasibility, we're able to look at performance, and we've seen mixed results, but I think that's to be expected, and generally speaking, quite positive results on the contextual side of things. We're also testing and trialing a lot of direct data partnerships with publishers and working much more on the direct relationships that we have with publishers and extending those. And then the final thing that I would say is on the measurement side, we tested quite significantly on probabilistic measurement. So looking at measuring impression exposure, attributing impression exposure and paid media engagement, generally speaking, to website interaction and navigation, and then through to purchase and conversion. So we've done a lot of experimentation around probabilistic measurement.
Thanks a lot. And practically, those experimentation are overall positive or negative or so. What's your first insights, if you want to share them today?
Sure. So like I said, most of the work that we've done in contextual-based solutions has been generally positive. I think we'll probably talk about some of the challenges in setting these things up as we go through today, but there's still a lot of work to be done, making sure these solutions can scale across multiple markets and can deliver significant campaigns in terms of budget requirements. But generally speaking, the performance has been solid. We certainly see it falling within the bounds of expectation for prospecting activity. And obviously, authenticated identity-based matching into walled garden solutions tends to provide quite high performance. We're limited in scalability there, but that's nothing new for us. So generally speaking, the performance has been in line with expectation.
Thanks a lot. Maybe we can jump to you, Paul, because you are testing contextual as well.
We do it
on your side, and you also have some interesting insights for us here.
So what we've been doing since 6 months to recap the previous question, there's a lot of stuff going on. I feel right now the market is in giant brainstorming mode, right, all together about those subjects. There are a lot of different ideas and initiatives, and we'll see in the long run which one will be the one the most used by our clients. So as a publisher, first goal, provide as many volumes as possible to our client, which means today consented volume and logged in volume and compatible with third-party identification volume and so on and so forth. So first part is bringing as much useful volume as possible. Second part is being multi-compatible. So we want to be available through as many identification solutions as possible. So it means LiveRamp, it means Unified ID, it means ID5, it means UTAP, as many as possible, because nobody can tell right now what will be the most used in a couple of months, couple of years. So we want to be, so volumes plus multi-compatibility equal, we want to be used by our client, whatever the solution they want to try out, we want to tell them, go and try it out with us, because we have those capability for you to try them out. Now onto the question about contextual, for now it can change, but for now we feel contextual is one part of the answer, but not the full answer. It feels like today it cannot address 100% of the demand we have about targeting and measure. And so yeah, it's something we will definitely use on the long run, but it can't replace everything to our current point of view.
Thank you, Paul. So in between, we have Emma and Joanna representing really the pure cookieless business. So maybe Emma or Joanna, as you want, who wants to also express your point of view?
Me starting?
Okay.
Okay. Well, probably should start with saying, unlike the rest of the panelists, I think that I speak for context within an in-app environment, not a web environment. So I should probably note that first. This is an in-app solution, or I'm talking about an in-app environment, therefore it's a bit different. When I talk about cookieless, I'm talking about IDFA-less, not cookies in the way that they are used in web. And the main difference between in-app and web is that there's simply no alternative IDs. That doesn't exist. And either you have the permission to get from you either get the permission from a user to use their ID, or you don't, and that's it. And you can only ask for it once. So if you did not get that permission, you cannot ask again, and you cannot use anything else, because if you try to, you're going to get rejected by the platforms themselves. So that's one. Second, we didn't create this solution as a reaction to the change by Apple. We didn't create the solution as we heard Apple is changing the policy, therefore we're going to create a new solution. We are already going down this path. So nothing really changed for us in the last 6 months. We just continue on the same journey that we're always going down. We're always going down an idealist and basically private solution, because we want it to be private by design in the first place. As I mentioned in my intro, what we do is we basically take sensors data and translate it into real world context. And this is why the whole mobile environment is a bit more powerful in that context, because you don't take your computer with you for a run. You do take your mobile device. So that is, you can create a much more complex environment. You can create a much more complex tapestry of what a user is actually doing, because they do take their phone and go for their day. So they will be shopping and they will be eating at restaurants and they will be maybe even running. I'm not a jogger, but some people are, I don't judge. But then you can know all this information about a person and you can really start thinking of context as a much more complex thing than just the content itself. That also means that we can actually deal with the core issue of addressability. A lot of the issues we're seeing right now is there's a lot more, like so many competitive like solutions, so many, nobody knows what kind of idea will win, or trying to force ideas in an environment that doesn't allow it. To really solve addressability, we need to go to the core. What is the problem with addressability? Why are those changes happening? And kind of try to get the root cause and solve it from the foundation. As for the solution, where how effective this is, so far we've been seeing quite promising results, though this is still early stages for this, and hopefully we'll be able to share more data in the future.
Thanks, Emma. And then Joanna, you are perfectly in the middle, and I'm sure you have a lot of testing right now. So
yeah, well, more than testing, I would say. So our company was launched around the time of GDPR, when those regulations came into effect. And initially, we had a lot of adoption from publishers who wanted to prove that they were not sharing their consumers' data in a non-privacy way. So being able to lock down the data, not prevent data leakage from their own site, but also show that they were complying with the GDPR regulations. And in the last couple of years, there's been more and more adoption from publishers that have a lot of users accessing their site on Safari and Firefox, because there is an issue there now with cookies not being available in those environments. And I think that a lot of publishers are losing revenues. They're unable to identify the users individually, and they are losing revenues, and they're not able to market the inventory at the rate it should get. So we've seen a lot of adoption, and that's really increased over the last 6 months. In the first half of 2021, big increase for more and more publishers around the world adopting ID5 and probably other identity solutions. And it's because of the announcement that Google made in January last year, when they said that from January of next year, from 6 or 7 months from now, there won't be any third-party cookies available in Chrome. And as that deadline approaches, more and more publishers are looking for education, probably dialing in to watch events like this, and then adopting the different identity solutions. And I would say, we really have seen a huge adoption. I would say, to the point about we don't know which solution is going to win, so we just adopt them all. We really do have an opportunity as an industry, the people on this panel, the people that are dialing in, to choose the solutions that will win. So I think that a lot of companies are voting with their feet, both on the publisher side and the advertiser side. And something that's been specific, I would say, to the last 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, is that more and more advertisers and agencies have started to ask for sort of explainer sessions. Can we give an overview of the landscape for identity, the different players, who works with who, how does it work, the difference between inferred identity and determined identity, all of these kind of questions. I guess that's because agencies and advertisers are doing their planning for next year, and they need to be able to plan for alternative solutions. So definitely an increase in inquiries from the buy side over the past few months.
Okay, thanks. So now let's talk about the next six months. So you've been starting to test, but so I guess it's going to be much more intensive in the next 6 months. So what's your plan? Let's start maybe with you again, Asha.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's more testing. As Joanna said, we've got to go out there and we've got to ensure that we've looked at everybody. We don't want to, just choose the first one that we've looked at. Go, oh, they've got a good thing going. Let's just go with them. We can't make the wrong decision here, but we don't know what the right decision is. So we've got to go out there and test everybody. So we are talking to, lots of people, pretty much all of the big players, and at some point we will have to make some kind of decision. I'm not going to say we're going to go with one solution. I very much doubt we will go with just one solution. I think it will end up being multiple. But we have now got to go out and find something that is kind of like is global as well. We're a global company. So big players that we're looking at are people like Live Ramp, Mercury, the Trade Desk, ID5. They're kind of like the big identity players that we're mainly looking at. And then we're also looking at what can people like the SSPs, what can they bring us? For me, that's more of like an add-on. So I think, what we're trying to do at Dell right now is really say, okay, what's our foundational level? So like our identity solution, and then let's start working with the SSPs and try and the DSPs as well, and work out, what is that added value that we can get from them, and then also working with publishers. So I'm now starting to talk to various different publishers and saying, okay, which publishers are willing to share data with us? What are publishers willing to do? What data have they got that in a cookieless world is going to be useful to us as an advertiser, and that they're willing to share, obviously, in a privacy first way. So we've got a lot of work to do still, and it's kind of like 6 months. Yeah, it's challenging. Good job we've got a big team doing this, because it's going to be challenging.
Yeah, I guess a very big challenge. You were talking about first-party data and this access, so I guess we can go to Paul directly, because it's a topic on my side, I know, and a big challenge for both sides.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we definitely feel that advertisers are coming to us more and more every week to ask us about our data strategy and how we do it. It's not necessarily about working together right now, but it's a lot about how do we manage our data, and that's it. So we feel we have a position where we are providing the core asset that we talk about here, which is the behavioral data about consumers. So definitely talking much more than we used to with advertisers. The thing is that we believe that, and up until now, data was the icing on the cake being our inventory. When you go and ask publishers, it's about 80–90% of their business is inventory, CPM, sold revenues, and then 10–20% is about the data. We believe in a few years, data will be another cake on itself. It's going to be a new revenue stream for publishers, something else, because yeah, we feel we need this fuel to fuel our advertising and advertising of our clients. So we don't really know how we're gonna do those bridges with advertisers so far. We have some experimentations, and we know how to connect DMPs together, to connect DSP and DMPs together. But definitely, I think in a few years, we'll be working with data as fluidly, maybe, as we work with inventory in the SSPs and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's definitely a discussion that we have more and more.
Thanks, Paul. Maybe Joanna, as providing an alternative ID and a solution for this first-party data topic, you want to comment and to add also what you are planning to do in the next 6 months?
Yeah, the next 6 months, I'd say, is more of the same, but clearly there's a need for me to spend more time focusing with advertisers and agencies. Our approach has been very much, we would say, to stock the shelves of the shop before we open the shop. So we've worked with lots of publishers around the world to activate their own first-party data so that can now be accessed by the advertisers and agencies. And I think that a lot of campaigns are running now, a lot of digital advertising is running now, is using ID5's ID and other IDs when there is no third-party cookie present, just as part of the always-on activity. I think maybe a focus for the next 6 months could be to look at specifically isolating specific campaigns, maybe one agency on one country, or one brand in like a handful of different publishers with specific KPIs. So just look to isolate those tests, get the KPIs, track and measure, and then look at how we can improve on the technology side and improve the campaign planning going forward, and be ready with what we learn now in environments where we can compare when third-party cookies are available, be able to apply that when the cookies are deprecated in Chrome next year. So that will be a big focus for me. But I also, most of the publishers we work with, or we work with many publishers around the world that work with us on our inferred identity solution and also our authenticated identity solution. And I think it's interesting that we mentioned that, like, publishers looking to gather more first-party data. I think that's really important, but often this conversation just collapses into a conversation about logged in emails and having the consumers log in and publishers looking, you've got 6 months to create a new product that's going to be able to get more logged in emails. So it doesn't have to be that. Actually, lots of the advertisers I'm talking with want the reach of probabilistic solution, as well as maybe they may have specific email addresses in their CRM campaign or telephone numbers or any other data point that they're looking to target. So I think, again, probably more education and more isolated tests coming up over the next few months, and looking to gather more first-party data in all its forms.
Thanks, Joanna. Miles, on your side, about first-party data, publisher first-party data, or alternative ID, some plans for testing? And
Yeah, I think much of the same, really. It's still a very busy period for experimentation, for test and learn. I think that certainly over the next several months, we're going to look to solidify the portfolio-based approach of many of our clients. We've been spending a lot of time investigating and learning about the various alternatives and how we can connect better the various different alternatives that mitigate against the loss of the third-party cookie. I think now it will be really about concretizing that for a lot of our clients and talk to them in very specific terms around the portfolio solutions that they have available to them. And really, we're moving into a phase of trying to now roll these solutions out and make them operationally scalable over, in some cases, as many as 40 different markets. So it really takes quite a different form when you've got that degree of scalability that you need to build into the solutions that you're developing. So, I mean, on the top of my list at the minute, the 3 or 4 things, first and foremost, it's rolling out a contextual-based marketplace that's, generally speaking, leveraging deal IDs and the bid stream in order to be able to target predictive audiences based on their real-time context, a little bit like what Emma was talking about for in-app inventory and for web inventory. It's looking at alternative probabilistic identity solutions, as Joanna was talking about, that provide scale and inferred identity. And we're looking at that, as I said, from both the measurement perspective, where it tends to provide a higher degree of reach and accountability for paid media particularly, but also from an activation point of view, again, leveraging private data marketplaces. We're increasingly moving toward deal ID based activation, leveraging the real-time bidding protocol and private marketplaces, but more from a data and audience point of view, as opposed to it historically being either an inventory pure play or an inventory and audience combination. And then the other thing that I would mention is the use of clean room solutions, independent clean rooms, types of InfoSum, to help to build the bridge between our advertisers and publishers and media owners, so that we can have mutually beneficial arrangements there with the transfer and the matching of audience data across the buy and the sell side. The only other thing that I would mention just in closing is we are still very keen to trial the Google Privacy Sandbox solutions, Fledge and Block. So we are on partner programs with Google, and we are due to trial those solutions in the final months of this year. So it'll be interesting to understand how they can play a role moving forwards.
Are you trialing them in Europe or just the US, Miles?
So we're currently actively trialing in the US. I think the hope is that we can get some trials up and running in Europe and in other territories toward the back end of this year.
Thanks. Emma, maybe on your side, the testing and the future 6 months, how does it look like for NumberEight?
Absolutely. The first of miles, it's really interesting. I'll be very curious to know the results of those tests with Google. Super keen, like super interesting. So very exciting test to do. As for us, the next 6 months, first, this is pilot seasons. So we have a few pilots coming live and really with some amazing partners such as Smart. It's really interesting and curious to see how that's all going to pan out. We're getting ready for scale. So Apple recently released iOS 14.6 after iOS 14.5, and it's been pretty slow for adoption, so slower than usual. However, it will inevitably be picked up. It was inevitable to happen that users are starting to actually install it, and we're seeing a larger scale. So it's gonna rise and rise slowly up until we hit that, it's like a roller coaster, up until you hit that pivotal point when you know that you're done for, you're in for the ride. And so kind of waiting for that, same time working on taxonomy and standardization. So working with partners like IAB to create real proper standardization for the taxonomy, just because a lot of those terminology is just missing right now, especially around in-app context and audiences. There's quite a lot to do to facilitate the interactions between the buy side and the sell side. So there's a lot to do from the standardization point of view, and how fast all of this is going to happen really depends on the user. So if users will adopt iOS 14.6 faster, you'll see an acceleration. If it will be slower, it might take a bit longer, because eventually that adoption rate will have a significant impact on revenues, will have a significant impact on ROI, on advertising. And the moment that happens, nobody can run on negative ROI for a very long time. So the moment that happens, you either kind of go back to the drawing board and rethink app economies, or solve addressability. That's basically kind of the options you have, just because within mobile, Apple, originally we thought that maybe we'll have more room to play. Originally people thought that there was going to be something like fingerprinting or anything around hash emails. Apple just rejected all of it. And now we're kind of like, either we find a private solution, or we think of rethink economies. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I guess definitely we have to rethink our economy anyway, on in-app and on the web as well. So maybe Emma, when we were preparing this session, we were talking about the biggest blocker concerns you are observing to make the industry move forward, and you have an interesting point of view here. So
absolutely, thank you. I think that especially for iOS or the mobile world, it's a very noisy market, and because there's quite a lot of noise, it leads people to either be confused and then disconnect. Think of when COVID first hit, like we had all this news, it was very confusing, and therefore we wanted to just kind of like unsubscribe and disconnect and not think about it anymore. And we're kind of in the same boat right now with the whole IDF change. There's too much information, none of it is very accurate, and therefore we don't want to hear it anymore. Also because several things are happening at the same time with cookies and IDFA. A lot of publishers, a lot of players just were so focused on cookies going away, they almost forgot about IDFA. It was almost like, oh, we'll worry about that later. But since IDFA changed sooner, or was in place sooner, they're not kind of, so this actually happened. Now we have to deal with it right now, because this is happening right now, and cookies will only disappear in January. So there's too much changes all at once, and they don't know what to prioritize, and whatever seems bigger gets all the attention. And then after something already changed, like, uh-oh, now we have to deal with that. And many of the solutions are just unsustainable. And I think part of it is because that Apple wasn't super clear. At the beginning, when they first launched it, people believed that alternative IDs will be possible. And they were banking on it almost. And then Apple went but just one solution at a time, like, nope, that's not going to happen. Nope, that's not going to happen. And most of the solutions out there right now are more of Band-Aid, trying to resolve and mitigate the risk until further solutions are going to be found. And that's why nobody wants to be the first to test it. Why would they want to invest money and effort in something that's only going to last for a couple of months? So as always, any innovator dilemma, one, you want to know that if you're investing your time, it's going to be sustainable. Second, nobody really wants to test anything fast. You want to be innovative, but not too innovative. You want to be like the third person to innovate. There's the first person who takes all the risk, and the second person who takes some of the risk. And then I'm going to be the third, maybe fourth. I'm going to see you two try, and then I'm going to maybe join in. And that's kind of where we're like, nobody wants to be the first, and we're trying to find, oh, there's a few people that are brave enough to really go for it.
Yes, indeed. And Miles, also on your side, some blockers that you identified?
Yeah, I think just speaking from my experience, one of the major blockers that I've had is this is all quite nascent capability and technology. We're talking about emerging solutions that are still, in many cases, developing their proposition or integrating with the wider ad tech ecosystem. So certainly one of the challenges we've had is the limited availability or access to solutions. So the theory sounds fantastic, but then when you look to actually set up a trial or a pilot, it's, you know, being able to set that up, leveraging one publisher in one market, where we're talking about, in most cases, requiring at least a roadmap to multi-market deployment. So that's certainly one thing that we've experienced that's made it slightly more challenging, particularly with the number of suppliers and tests and pilots that we're looking to run. Often those important markets overlap, right? So where somebody can trial one thing, you know, it tends to be the same handful of markets, and we only have a certain amount of resource and can't constantly be throwing new pilots at our teams all the time. The only other thing that I would say is held us up, and I don't want to make a sort of wide sweeping point about regulation, but I don't think it would be too controversial to say regulation does slow down innovation. It slows down our ability to test and to trial new solutions. And I think when the market moves as quickly as our market moves, particularly in the identity ecosystem, it can be a little bit challenging, making sure you've dotted all of the I's, crossed all of the T's, gone through all the legal due diligence, which the current regulation requires, at the volume, at the pace that we need to do that in order to be able to put these solutions together. So that's the one other thing that I would say has been a bit of a challenge.
Indeed. Okay, I see a message from the timekeeper, and we have only a few minutes left, so we can go to the conclusion part. So what would be your advices to advertisers and publishers who are listening to us today regarding what to do next? Maybe we start with you, Asha, again.
I think for advertisers like us, I'd say you need to educate yourselves. You need to be aware of what's going on out there. Don't sit around and just hope that, you know, come January next year, somebody will have worked it out and you can just click your fingers and plug and play it and it will be done. I think if you do that in January, February, March, whenever this actually happens, you're going to be scrambling. So I would say get out there, talk to your agency, talk to the different vendors who are out there. You know, 10 panels like this, which you're obviously doing, and you know, just learn about it, and then educate the other people who work around you. Because I think everybody's aware this cookie thing is going to happen, but I'm not convinced that everybody actually realize what the implications are going to mean to their actual campaigns and to their bottom line, to their revenue, when the cookie hits the fan, as we want to say. And then on the publisher side, I would say work with us advertisers. We really want to, well, those of us who are looking into it, we want to know what publishers' data is going to be available to us. For us, that's going to be kind of like the new gold. We want to be able to get something from you as publishers. If you have got logged in data, great, but you know, the other question is also, you know, we talked about earlier, is it's not just logged in data, prospecting. How the heck are we going to do prospecting in the future? I'm sure the publishers have got all of this information about people who log into their sites that they will be able to package up into new, I don't know, deals, let's say, for us as advertisers to be able to use to be able to go and then find net new clients. So that'd be my advice.
Thanks, Asha. So nice to see how closer you want to go to publishers, to be from publishers. Maybe Paul, on your end.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the advices, Asha. Well, I think I'll just answer about what Asha said is, and we don't really know each other yet, but yeah, as a publisher, we tend to know that we need to provide our data to advertisers and as well as insights. So one of the key priority this year is trying to build this, this platform where any advertiser can simply see what our users love to read right now on our websites. What are the key stuff that people want to know about when they go online and read content, right? And so they can maybe try to learn stuff from our users and direct their campaigns based on those key findings. But that's something that we're building. An advice for publishers, like the same thing as us, like dedicate as many resources as possible to help your clients go and try the solution. Don't wait for the market to decide for you guys, because the key KPIs for Prisma Media might not be the key KPIs for another publisher that will have other needs, and maybe they will need other solution. Advice for advertiser is exactly the same, is just dedicate time and people and effort to try the stuff, because you won't use alternative cookieless solutions if you want to sell cars, or if you're the government and you want people to know about one specific initiative you're launching in one town. So it really, you don't need to wait for the market to decide for your own. And if I can maybe an advice for the people in between, it's like simplicity is key, really. Like I feel there is all this noise that you talked about just before, Emma, but at the same time, our clients have less and less time available. So you have those two phenomena at the same time, and sometimes it's going a bit crazy. So I think we need as simple as possible solutions that are as simple as possible. And if someone can bring a very, very easy to use solution where you just click a button and then you have your results and your targeting and so on and so forth, blending together contextual plus ID plus I don't know, in a very, very simple way, in an Apple-y way, I would say, if we want to think about their products, then it will be awesome.
Yes, indeed. Miles, on your end, what's
Sure.
advices?
I'll keep my advice pretty practical, I guess. I would leverage the time that we have whilst we still have third-party cookies available within Chrome. Setting up tests and pilots at the minute is important because you're able to assess the performance across different environments, ones that have access to third-party cookies still and ones that don't. So it's a really important time, whilst we still have access to third-party cookies, to go through the process of testing and trialing and comparing these different solutions and seeing them in their true form and comparing them to the existing and what will soon to be the extinct capability of the third-party cookie. The other thing that I would do in the time that we have whilst we still have third-party cookies is to document and take record of key themes and patterns that you see, particularly in measurement, things like multi-touch attribution, where we still have access, readily and easily available access to these data sets and these information sets that tend to not alter or change to too great an extent over a short period of time. You can take a lot of that learning and a lot of that insight and information on into modeling processes and into informing planning and buying processes way beyond the loss of the third-party cookie. So I'd benefit and maximize the opportunity that you have now.
Thanks.
If
Joanna?
if I could add to that, I agree with what everybody said. I do agree, Miles, that contracts and legislation can hold things up. I spend a lot of time trying to explain to publishers in Japan and Australia and the US why they need to adhere to our GDPR clauses, but it's not just because we have servers in Europe, but it's also because I believe this is the direction of travel. That the GDPR is like the gold standard of privacy legislation. And so I really feel that the solutions that we're testing now and that will win out in the future have to be privacy by design. And I think that we've talked a lot about data, about publisher data and advertiser data, and it's going to become really more valuable, but it's important that it's not shared openly, that it's protected, that you protect your own sites from data leakage, and that advertisers are not sharing their data, or we're not looking to sell data in a way that doesn't work for the consumers and isn't sustainable in the long term. And then my final point, I agree with what everybody else has said, but I also think it's important to turn to the ad tech partners like Smart, who are leading in this area, as well as the industry bodies. So the IAB, the AOP in the UK, the MMA, the ISBA, the different bodies that work either for the advertisers and agencies or for the publishers, because collectively, if you come together, I think you'll have more learnings and more shared insights from the different tests, and also looking at the regulatory framework. I think the IAB has been brilliant on the transparency and consent framework and setting these standards that will benefit everybody, and can have more, some small publishers will be able to have a bigger voice by collaborating with others.
Okay, Emma, very, very quickly, because we need to close the panel. I
will do my best. So completely agree with Joanna. And I think that if we all try to understand the spirit, those rules and regulations, those changes were made in, we will identify which solution will be sustainable over time. If we just go in that spirit, we should be okay. As for advertisers, I will probably say be wary of cheap UA. It's not cheap. Buying media, when it says it's cheap, it's on sale, it's probably not that cheap. First-party data is fundamental. Get to know your high-value users as much as you can, and don't be afraid to try new things. Publishers, we coined a term called FOMI, which I love, and it means first-party data, on-device computing, ad monetization is going to be impacted, so just accept it. And IDs are going away. We might as well get on that train because it's already left the station. If we try, at least within the mobile world, IDs have slightly left the building in terms of the traditional ID setup. So that is, I will not talk to web because I am not the expert in web IDs, and therefore I will conclude my final conclusion.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Emma. We really have to close this panel because the one is starting. So I really want to thank you all for your time and for your very interesting insights.
Thank you so much.
And I hope to talk to you soon again around those topics. Thanks.
Look forward to that. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.